tell your story because our stories are important. And let's welcome our next storyteller, Onyi.
Natalie Bender. Here, Jennifer Cartwright. Here, it's the first day of 10th grade and I've just started at a new high school. I nervously scan all the faces in the room as the teacher goes down the list. Nothing's new about this. We've all been there. Kyle Jackson. Here, Derek Livingston. Here, and just like that, the anxiety starts setting in as I know the M's, N's, and O's are next. And then comes the dreaded pause. You see, my name is Onyekachi Chibuza Okoroafor, and no one ever seems to get that quite right the first time around. I sheepishly raise my hand as the entire class turns to me. Yeah, that's me. How do you pronounce that? The teacher asks. Oh, I just go by Oni. It's like Tony without a T. I lie. It's actually pronounced Onyi, but in a desperate attempt to get out of the spotlight, I'm willing to make that concession. Okay, she responds. And just like that, we move on, a few eyes lingering on the new kid. But I remember why I hate all the Tony Johnsons and Eric Hamiltons of the world. Why do I have to be so stinking different? Different. This one word best describes my experience growing up as a first-generation Nigerian American. Like, yeah, my name was different, but that was just a reminder. What was far more palpable was that I did not share the cultural landmarks of my peers. I can't tell you the amount of trepidation I approached any conversation about music or movies with for fear of being exposed, called out, reminded that I don't fit in. So imagine my excitement when one of the cool kids in 8th grade burned the Pimp mix for me. I take the CD home, but now I'm facing another conundrum. You see, my parents come from a world where things are done a little bit differently. Calling women bitches and hoes just doesn't fit into their definition of acceptable. And put yourself in their shoes. They're in a new country trying to find their way. They've battled academic and professional environments systematically designed to prevent them from thriving. They learn how to navigate while raising 3 kids under 4. Time is short and money even shorter, but they continue to fight with the sole goal of ensuring their kids live a better life than they did. They've seen so many kids get lost in the crowd, and they can't afford to have that happen to their children. They've sacrificed too much. So my parents are fighting their battle of survival. I'm fighting my own, far more short-sighted, adolescent version, trying to be accepted. And unfortunately, these two worlds didn't always align. For example, my parents love and listen to Nigerian music, so I grew up loving and listening to Nigerian music. My parents never go to the movies, so I grew up never going to the movies. Even today, I've never seen Star Wars or Indiana Jones, Scarface or The Godfather. Never watched an episode of Saturday Night Live, and can't for the life of me tell you who Chris Farley is. These are just choices after all, but these choices feel like requirements in a world where social capital is so closely tied to the mastery of such seemingly inconsequential knowledge. I'll never forget one day in college. I was hanging around with my fellow soccer teammates. As college students do, we were likely talking about everything and nothing at the same time. Someone asked my thoughts on some movie. I can't quite recall which one. And before I had the chance to respond, one of my teammates graciously spoke up on my behalf. He doesn't know. He's uncultured. The comment is an interesting one, and quite possibly the most ignorant thing anyone's ever said to me, right up there next to the time someone called me a nigger. In it, there's a certain level of judgment, like calling someone impulsive or opinionated. Was this what all my peers had thought of me all these years? I mean, it's one thing to not be pushing the boundaries of the coolness frontier, but being uncultured felt like a much greater charge. So help me out. What exactly do I need to know to be cultured? Language, religion, social norms? I mean, that's a start, but that doesn't capture the undercurrent of unstated yet firm expectations that exist around the types of experiences that we should all apparently be striving to have. Movies we should watch, TV shows we should love, music we should listen to, sports stars we should idolize. But all this iconic entertainment, though, is just that. It's entertainment. When I go home and turn on Netflix, I choose something to watch that I think I'll enjoy based on some combination of my personality, preferences, and interests. And I'm assuming you do the same. But unfortunately for me, when enough of you choose to watch the same thing, it all of a sudden becomes something I should do. This weird demand that despite our differences, we should all share similar tastes and make similar choices. Naturally, it's easy to think we all like a particular movie because it's good. Granted, our definition of good is largely informed by the opinions of the homogenous panel of primarily upper-class white people that govern the pay-to-play popularity contest we formerly know as the Oscars, the Grammys. And while this all could be objectively good, I can't help but wonder how all this iconic entertainment would fare in a country different from our own. Like, what if everyone in Nigeria hated Scarface? Does that make it a bad movie? Does that even matter? Don't you like it just as much? You see, it's one thing to have a particular preference. It's another to use the pretentious, elitist air of culture to demand that I aspire to do the same. And in that regard, culture, as we colloquially use it, is reactive, not proactive. It's conditional, not absolute. It's simply an observation, not necessarily something to aspire to. We do things and they become our culture. At the turn of the century, in many southern cities, the lynching of black Americans was a popular display that entire towns would attend, the public spectacles of their day. And don't worry, we Northerners had our own equally effective ways of getting the same points across. I mean, I guess you can say that's just part of our culture, but what does that even really mean? In the majority, there's a certain safety in numbers. The ubiquity of our choices allows us the privilege to be so thoughtless. It prevents us from asking the simple questions like why, or in the case of our FOMO-based entertainment choices, who gives a fuck? As an outsider, when you step into an environment that's well established, you're quickly placed into one of the existing categories. And if you don't fit one of these predefined archetypes, you're banished to the discard pile. Other. The simple phrase, oh, you haven't seen that before? Says so much. For you, it's trying to figure out who the hell is this kid that's never seen Star Wars? And for me, it's just another reminder that there's a certain way to go about being American, and I'm apparently not doing it right. We claim to be a melting pot, a country that thrives on the diversity of its population. But our fear and profound lack of awareness has us telling a very different story. For those unlike us, we offer two simple options: assimilation or ostracism. The visual that comes to mind is that of a prisoner who must surrender all of his or her belongings before entering the prison. Something about that feels limiting, unfair, and ironically uncultured. My parents left a country with tens of different ethnic groups: the Yorubas, the Hausas, the Fulanis, the Igbos, each with their own distinct characteristics. But in the US, they're African if they're lucky, and otherwise black. Gone with this classification are any of the nuances and particularities of their rich, storied heritage. I have always wondered if there's something at the root of our humanity that binds us all together, a culture we all share. I think about trips that I've taken abroad and how easy it is to get along with people from different parts of the world. You can sit in a room with a group of friends from Japan and a woman from Liberia, a gentleman from Kuwait and a couple from Argentina, and feel the exact same energy you feel when hanging around a group of friends from back home. We all love and care for the people around us, the family and friends close to us. We all have a desire for community and a yearning to belong. We all want to fight for a better today for ourselves and a better tomorrow for those who come after us. We all love to laugh and love to love. But who knows? Maybe I'm asking culture to mean something it doesn't. Maybe it is important to know the quarterback that won the Super Bowl last year and the name of every Quentin Tarantino movie. And maybe it is important to know the names of all the Beatles and the entire cast of Saturday Night Live. And maybe I should ignore where I come from and the rich heritage I was blessed with and instead try and be more of an asset to our Tuesday night trivia team. So maybe my teammate was right. Maybe I am uncultured. And I guess I'll have to thank my parents for that. Thank you.